right. Well, welcome everyone, and welcome to you on uh, YouTube. It's been, let's see here. All right. Well, it's kind of odd, all this technological stuff here, but I'm glad you're on, and welcome to this night's. Let me see if I can just move that. No, I guess I'll just do like that. Yeah. All right. We're still doing video from the house, and that's because my office had been flooded by a roof. Actually, it wasn't a roof collapse, but the construction company that was the um, working the project had messed up, and consequently, quite a bit of water came through the roof and had damaged a lot of my stuff in my office. So I still have to work all that out. I'll be figuring that stuff out. That's just adds to the dynamic. So we just got back from being down south in Florida. We're working on some things, and got to meet with a number of new clients. I'm excited about that, and so it's been a great couple months trying to stay out of uh, New Hampshire's cold weather, right? So I'm glad that you're on, and want to do just a couple of logistics, and I appreciate your being on. And there's Danny. Hey, Danny. it's, it's I just would ask that if during this time, if you have questions and things, you can direct them towards me. And I'm also going to ask that you would govern yourself and not be sharing during this time with each other, because I will end up having to read those things and it'll kind of interrupt the flow of things. And so I'll just ask that you hold off on that. Um, and that'll be helpful for some with respect to time and all that. This is thanks for being on tonight. Normally we do this Wednesday night, but because we just got back last night, I couldn't squeeze this call in, as well as traveling back all day. Um, so that was cool, and so I appreciate your patience in that. We've had a number of people that are coming on to do our passport processes, both in the workshop and the full passport service, where we are helping those clients. Had a number of clients doing things in consulates uh, around the world, or at least in this hemisphere. Um, Someone was down in Mexico, working very hard at trying to get the State Department to accept documents down there at the passport process. But that'll tie into tonight's talk, and that's dealing with bureaucrats. And when I talk about bureaucrats, I'm talking about dealing with government agencies or entities and things like that. I am not talking about how to deal with your wife or your husband. That shouldn't be, that level of bureaucracy is a mystery to me, and so I don't claim to be an expert in that, although I have a lot of experience. so, but uh, but those are personal things that you'd have to deal with. But I imagine that the principles should be the same when dealing with bureaucracies. Um, and with dealing with clients over the years, uh, let me just want to check in with the people on YouTube. Just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. If you give me a some sort of reaction or a thumbs up or something, I appreciate that. Uh, just also that if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would appreciate that you would uh, thumbs up or subscribe, because that's what people say and do. Okay, that's great. Thanks, Martha. Good, Martha's on. See, I'm among my friends and the people who love me. I hope most everybody. There's nobody who doesn't like me. That'd be bad energy, wouldn't it? Then again, maybe it'd be all right. They keep things honest, right? Uh, but anyway, talking about dealing with bureaucracy is typically a lot of the process or the human aspect of what we do. And as I think about that and helping clients and doing stuff, um, I I just want you to know that self-government is probably one of the biggest keys to a free society. And we have the government that we have because people refuse to govern themselves. And I mean, when I'm talking about governing, everyone is governing themselves. That's a reality. Whether it recognizes others is a whole nother matter. And when I talk about this, and even when we deal with the class, one of the first things that I deal with in the class, that's the state versus federal citizenship class. I deal with, what it is you have, who you are, what you're about. That's a huge part in how you're going to deal with government. If you're looking for others to affirm you, if you're looking for permission, if you're looking for, your government to, give you something that once belonged to someone else, or give you some sort of a privilege, I can promise you that they're going to give you no, and that things aren't going to work very well for you. So what you're telling yourself is a huge part in accomplishing the task. One of the things I'm thankful for is everything that we're doing is administrative. It's paperwork, and we're always striving to, to have everything true and correct. So the energy that you're coming into this space and dealing with government on whatever level you are, it's always coming from a place of you're just wanting things to be true, correct, in the light. One of the benefits that I think that we have with the work that we do with our clients, and that is I always want everything to be truthful and what I call in the light. We're not hiding, sneaking, dealing with runaway slaves, that kind of thing. That is not the energy that I'm looking at with respect to these processes. This should not be. I don't want to just say that it should be a cakewalk, although that's okay to have that mindset. I picture when I'm going to go in to deal with government that there's a little granny who's just been waiting to hear from me, and I can be kind and, hey, it's a nice day, it's beautiful. I'm hoping, and I do this at the grocery store too, is I'm looking for to try to interrupt that person that was they're having a certain day. I want to kind of interrupt them, the ho hum, the same thing, because I believe, like at a cashier, you're kind of invisible. You're just one of 10, 20, 30, 50 people that have gone through the line, and there was nothing memorable about your transaction. And I don't like to live like that. I want people to be blessed by my interaction, whether it's funny or I say something, I'm saying, I may say, how you doing? They say, how you doing? And that's how they answer, how are you doing? They're with your question again, how are you doing? And of course, if you say, I'm doing great or fantastic or whatever it is, and they don't answer, then they've just answered you with their question, and they're not really, I won't judge that they don't want to know. I'm thinking they're in automatic mode. And so I may say, did you really want to know? Or I am interested in how you're doing. Are you, like that? So again, I'm trying to interrupt the norm in that way. So when we're talking about dealing with government, we want to be able to engage with them, and we are after a particular thing, and we want to help them help us. Okay, and I don't know that I have to be in the mindset of I want to accomplish something and I don't care who I step on or any of that stuff. That's not really what I'm about. We really just want to get our paperwork done, and you have to assume that the person you're going to deal with does not know what you're doing. So coming back to the mindset, if you think that the government is after you, now let me say, with that question, let me say this, is that I know a lot of freedom people. I probably, just because of my unique position, okay, and what I've been doing over the last 20 years, I've got a good bead on our freedom community, at least the people that are doing the same kind of things that we are. And of course, I engage with freedom-minded people in New Hampshire and been to conferences. I engage with people. I engage with a lot of people. So I'm speaking from a place of my experience, which is interacting with a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people. You might not have. You might talk to a few people, and unless you're in some sort of a social aspect with respect to your your social circles, your experience of um, what people are about and whether the government's after you may not be the same as mine. And I'm not saying that's better. I'm just saying I've got some experience, and that's where I'm coming from with respect to sharing. So so with that in mind, I'm saying that I know people who come in, and I can tell from their language that they're interested in a fight, and that they may be interested in um, that they think the government's after them. Like, really? Okay. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about as you yourself. I'm not talking about like the government's after us collectively, or that, because there is some of that. We're not talking about conspiracy theories. We're talking about governments conspire, because we know firsthand that government is funky, and many of us know firsthand just how funky. But I promise you, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that it's probably worse than we even realize. That's what I'm making up about it, and I don't think that's far-fetched. So, how you think, I think, is going to have a big impact on whether or not, whether you're going to accomplish what you're after. Now, when I say that, there's a couple ways that people sometimes are processing things that they're going to get done. Some people are really nervous, and that's okay on some level, okay? Because if you're so nervous that you can't communicate what you're about, then you have to process and deal with what you're making up in your own head about the situation. There's another thing that I hear a lot that I always like to deal with when people are dealing with government, and that is this idea of I think they think. If you use the word think twice in the same sentence, I think, they think, you have given up good judgment. And if you're taking action based upon what you think they think, I promise you that'll be pretty screwed up. So that's what you have to get off of, that they think, that there is whoever they are, because they isn't all government. We're talking about people, and they think, but you don't know what they think. I remember someone was talking with a cop one time, and he was doing some certain thing, and he produced a certain result, and I think he was into that idea that he has the right shape American flag that's vertical and a certain color, and that the cop saw that, and he didn't give him a ticket because he had that certain flag on the back of his car. And so he was telling me this story, and I said, so you think that the cop walked away and didn't deal it because of the peace flag or whatever it was there? And he said, yeah. I said, did the cop say, I'm not giving you a ticket because you got that peace flag, and when I see that, I know this, and this is what, and he said that to you? No, he didn't say that. I said, did you get any paperwork, the results of it, that said that this is what happened at your door that day? No. I said, how do you know that cop didn't give you a ticket for some other reason? And here's what he said. Well, he had that look in his eye, that look, that look there. I said, oh, he had the look. That's how you know it was based on the peace flag? It's like, yeah. It's like, I can't rely upon that kind of data to pass on to other people. It's not reliable at all. You might have had an experience, but like my old Bible teacher used to say, your experience is no guarantee for truth. Okay. Just because I experienced something does not mean that I know the whole picture or whatever it is. Okay. There are a lot of people who had a lot of experiences on 9/11. And some people died in those experiences that they have. But just because they had an experience, and a traumatic one at that, does not mean that they know who, what, or why something happened. It doesn't give them that. All they have is their experience. Okay. And sometimes people take experiences and make like, that's because I had an experience, I know there are space aliens. You know, and people are all over the place with respect to space aliens. Okay. Yeah, my wife's in the background chirping. Yep, yep. Anyway, but the idea is that in at least in the legal aspect of things we do, we're going to deal with facts and evidence, and that's the best we got. And then we'll leave that idea. You may have truth, but let me tell you where truth is. Truth is what you are forming in your heart based upon your relationship with the divine. Because you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. But truth doesn't necessarily mean that that's about facts. Facts are made, okay? Evidence can be produced. One of my teachers used to say that if you're asserting something to be true, if you're asserting a fact, then you're the one that has the obligation to prove what you're asserting to be true. No one has an obligation to disprove you. There's no such obligation. Nobody has to disprove anything you say. If you're saying something is true, you have the burden of proof. Okay. So that's a principle. And if you get caught up in the other side of that, then you'll be spending a lot of time. And in this area of work, there is a lot of speculation and conjecture and stuff. Someone sent me an email tonight, and I'll talk about that in just a bit. But having the right attitude is vital when dealing with government. Okay. And I have a couple beliefs that I'm coming from when I'm pursuing something, dealing with government on any level. Okay. One is, I believe there's always a remedy. I may not know what it is, but I have this belief that there's always a remedy. There's some sort of thing that I can do that's going to be able to have me have happen whatever it is I want to have. That's one. And the other thing is that I may not know the path that I need to go down, but I will accomplish what I'm after. Okay. That's what I just have, that as a belief. I am going to accomplish. I might not know what the details are, or who I have to talk to, or what I have to do, but I am going to accomplish that task, whatever it is. And so that's why I don't always have a feeling that, and I can't say I've always felt this way, that you can, that if you screw something up, it's like permanent. I screwed this up, now I'm a slave. There's no such thing as that, okay? Be careful what you're telling yourself is what's possible, okay? Free people have the power and right to correct anything they do, regardless of what it is. You can always work something out and do something different, or just change your mind. It's available for you just to change your mind and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. So it's an exciting journey at this point, and look, if I've been doing this for a while, and I'm pretty comfortable with dealing with people, not only with clients, but also with, government. And for me, I find it kind of exciting. I too have frustrations when a client is, trying to work something out and they're having troubles. I'm bothered by that. I want our clients to have an easy pathway and all, but the truth is, I'm not in control of that. I was just talking to my son tonight, this afternoon, and we're ringing for the elevator at someplace where he lives, and I said, that a serenity prayer is really good. I remember when I heard it in the context of like AA and all that, I didn't really like it. But as I'm in my life more and more, and maybe the older I get, the more I realize that the God grant me the serenity, that's peace, the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and then the wisdom to know the difference. That is an awesome prayer, because it really puts in perspective of kind of three things. One is, what things can't I change? Now that's an interesting thing to really examine, because I'm of the opinion that there you can change a lot of things, and the biggest thing that you can change is you. That's so it's like, how can I be different in this situation? How could I show up differently? Because I can change myself if I want, and it's a paradox with respect to changing myself or that people changing. Okay, it's a paradox. Why is that? Because people, um, the human condition is amazing because it's one second. Um, people have been the same for years. It doesn't matter how modern we are, how technical, and what technology we have and all that stuff. It doesn't matter what clothes we wear or where we're eating. People are the same, and yet we're all uniquely different. How's that for a paradox? And then how about this? That because we could say, it's not likely that people change. People don't change, and yet people change if you want. So it's a paradox, and so it is available for you to feel good about these processes and to move through them well. Um, I really think that this walk, the amount of time associated with this is what I'm making up at the beginning. You'll spend more time working out these things than you would down the road for yourself. Okay. And after a while, every year, you'll know the things that you do every year. You'll know those things, and it's really pretty much uneventful. And the moments you've done them once or twice, three times, it's the same thing all the time. And I many times joke and say, it can be really boring, but like not like a bad thing, but it's just paperwork and stuff. So don't have it be overwhelming for you. And if you're overwhelmed, okay, I'm telling you that this stuff, it's not overwhelming, and it's simple and easy to do. Okay, that's because I've been doing them for a while. But they may seem overwhelming because it's new and it's different. And just like any new skill or art that you're trying to learn, it has, you're trying to develop new patterns and things. That's the part that's difficult or challenging, and it'll work out. It will. So, so I want you to know that this can be a fun journey. And then if you don't mind dealing with people, oh, you see, that's where it is. That's where I draw the line. I hate dealing with people. I pretty much can't stand people. So if I have to deal with government people, you can't think of anything more worse thing to do when you get up in the morning. It's like, I got to go down and deal with somebody. I hate that. And I can relate to that. I know exactly how you must feel if that's the way it feels for you, because that's why I don't always like, living with people. Now, honey, don't listen to this part. No, you can't say these things around your spouse because you live with them, but I don't like other people living with you. That's a much better way to say that. but but the idea is because I don't like it when the water faucet's dripping. There's a certain madness in my life that I'm aware of, and so I don't want to put up with other people around me. I love partying with people. I love socializing because the beautiful thing is you get to go home. If you have grandkids, you get to play with them, have fun, then they get to go home. So there's this human dynamic that you may have about people, and that may be playing out. So I just ask you just to set that aside when you're going to deal with these government people. Now, when we talk about government, I want you to understand a principle of dealing with people in government. And this truth that I'm going to tell you about is the same as whether we're talking about in government in general, as well as, well, this could be true for corporations. I would venture to guess that plays out, but also in the military. Here is the principle. Okay, all information is given on a need to know basis. Okay, that's the principle. So it's likely that the person that you're going to deal with in these matters in government, they are the least knowledgeable about the big picture. Okay, they're not trained to have more knowledge about the situation. And generally speaking, I would imagine that these people that you're going to deal with in government, they are not attorneys. They don't know about legal matters. They certainly don't know what you do with respect to some of these areas. And so, if you have an expectation that they know and that they're like um, keeping secrets and stuff like that, or like, oh, they know, they're just not saying, and you don't have facts to back that up, then all it'll be is your judgment about them, and then it may escalate your emotions about it, and that's not going to help at all. Okay. And when I'm talking to clients about their given situation, and it might be in the moment when they're dealing with their bureaucrat or whatever it is, many times I'll be talking to the client the way that and I want the client to understand this, that they may. Oh, see, my wife just left the room. I know she can still hear me. I'm not getting away with anything. Anyway, the honey, that was distracting. You left the room. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I'm radioactive. That's what. No, what happens is that I many times am trying to communicate the way I'm feeling about a given situation, the way that I may be dealing with the bureaucrat. And I remember talking to a client over the last week here when they're in Mexico dealing with the consulate at different places, and they were having a hard time. We almost got thrown out of one consulate, had to go to another one, and all. And God bless this one client who he's able to fly to a different city in Mexico and to do a passport process at a different one, and we did accomplish the task. And you have a different experience in different places. It's true, but one of the things he was struggling with, and as I'm listening and getting to know the client, is he was very friendly. Okay, almost too friendly in the sense that his language many times was looking for permission, and so as I'm coaching him and talking about that. It's not that we have to be rude, and listen, you cannot be, let me use the vulgar, is like, you can't be a dick and think that someone's going to help you out. It doesn't work that way. If you're ratcheted up and like and you're offended and all that stuff, listen, they got the means to shut you down and throw you out, and you're going to waste your time, and you're going to have to start all over, go somewhere else. That is not the plan, nor the energy that you want to bring to the table. You want to open up the biggest possibility. So so he was being very kind. Now that's too far, because there is a certain, like, you have to assert yourself and you have to know who you are. One of the things that I say with respect to that is, like, when you go into the consulate, or you go into the passport office, or you're going to go into where they get a driver's license, or you're going to go into the place where they do the DMV, or any government building, walk in the building, take your jacket off or whatever it is, look around, take a look at the whole place. You own it. You pay for this thing. It's for you. It's for the people. Check the temperature. Is the temperature in the room to your liking? Because they're there to serve you. When the State Department writes to us in letters, they're always sincere. You know how I know they're always sincere? Because they write the word sincere in their letters. And so that's one of the things I can always guarantee with the State Department, is that they're sincere. I've never had to write to them and say, come on, you're giving us a hard time here. Can you be a little more sincere? Never have to do that with them. So that's one of the things, but they never write their name on there, so we don't really get any kind of a close relationship to where I can identify who it is that's making up the stuff that they're making up. But that's always something we're working out. But the idea of you walking into the places, I want you to realize that you're in charge. You are in charge. I'm telling you, you're in charge. How do I know you're in charge? Because the ones that are in charge of the entire government are your representatives. They may not be representing you very well, but they are your representatives. They are in complete charge of the entire government. And see, here's the problem. They don't even know it. Nobody's teaching elected representatives. here's the truth about your power and authority, and here's what nobody's going to school for that. They just walk in, and the only way that they know what they're doing is others tell them what to do, or they've been involved with it long enough to know some of the procedure. But nobody instructs these politicians on how to be a proper politician. They may have some classes on how to get what you want and get done, in some capacity like that. I don't, there is some instruction, but usually it's that school of hard knocks or whatever it is that they're trying to figure out. I will run for office in New Hampshire at some point. I'm not sure when. I'll have to give up going to Florida for the winter for the 2 terms or whatever. It's not anything I'm interested in doing now or in these days, but I am going to do it sometime because I think it'll be fun to pull my hair out. And I've got a lot of hair to pull out when I'm engaging with people. And wouldn't that be fun? You know what would be even more fun? Would be to get into office and then to hire someone to videotape you all the time so that they can upload that on YouTube and see just how you engage with these lunatics. And when I say lunatics, I just mean our other representatives, are the good people that are in office. Those lunatics, those people I don't want to be around. Those are the ones with power. But anyway, dealing with if I were in public office, then I would be a taxpayer. No, that's not. No, you have to be a federal citizen to be a taxpayer. But anyway, no, I'll never be a taxpayer. That doesn't mean I don't pay taxes. It just means I won't be a taxpayer. That's a unique word that's in Title 26. But anyway, but no, I've already been in office. I've already been elected as a selectman in my town. It was a good short run. It was just a good wetting of the feet. And I have run for state rep and was beat in the neighboring town that had more people by a guy that had a 20-year business. Everybody knew him in town. Didn't even have any signs up. I didn't have a chance. But in my town, they mostly voted for me, which I thought was great. That's why I ran for selectman at the time, and it was wonderful. And I will do it again. I will. It says, as a government employee, would you pay tax on your income as a public servant? Well, first of all, in New Hampshire, you only get $100 a year. So that's not much of, and I would never, if I was elected as any kind of rep, I would never be an employee of the government that I am representing the people for. So there's no need for me to be employed by the government in any way. If I incur costs by being a public servant, if you will, I certainly can invoice them the burden that I have, and they'll pay it out, But again, people do that because they're in automatic mode. But no, I wouldn't be employed. I'm unemployable, and if you do these processes, you can be unemployable too. So, and not like that's a bad thing; it's a good thing. So anyway, dealing with some of these bureaucrats. It's actually a lot of fun. I remember one time I was getting birth certificate for my son years ago. Might have been the second one or whatever. And they have a little piece of paper you have to fill out. And I gave my name and my son's name and his birthday and whatever else it is. And you have to show some ID, show you who you are, that kind of stuff. And then they came and said, we'll need a telephone number. And I'm like, a telephone number. And so here's how I am. I back up. I'm confused. I'm like, are you suggesting you only give out birth certificates to people who have phones? That if you didn't have a phone, you couldn't get a birth certificate? Is that what you're saying? He's like, oh, no. I'm like, well, he says, you don't have a phone? I'm wearing myself. I was like, well, I don't have a phone for you. And he says like, well, we have to have a phone number. I said, really? I said, let's see the statute that requires me to provide a telephone number for a birth certificate. So he went out back, came back. He was showing me death certificates, weddings, license or certificates of, and so didn't have birth certificate. So what he was showing me had those two things. I said, well, I'm getting a birth certificate. I'm not getting those things. I said, I said, let me look up the statute that governs getting these things. So we looked it up. We found it. It said, the things, it required what was on the front of the piece of paper. On the back of the paper was data mining. They were just looking for more data. And I said, well, it doesn't say telephone number in the statute that governs this. And he said to me, and I'll never forget, he says, well, that's not what the legislature meant to require. What they required, everything else that's on that form. I said, again, I'm taken back. I'm like, I got a question. It's like, so you're saying to me, the actual statute that governs this, that they voted for, that came and became in office, that they voted for, wasn't really what they intended. This other thing that they didn't vote for, that's on there, that's what they really intended. That's what you're trying to get me to think that's what they meant. He's like, I said, now I'm really getting mad now. And he said, sir, you don't have to get angry. I'm just doing my job. I said, well, I'm not really angry. I just wanted to see if that tact was going to work for you, if it's going to work with you. And he's like, he's hemming and hawing. I said, listen, are you going to give me the birth certificate? He says, yeah, we'll go get it. And the guy behind me says, I don't have a phone for you either, and I want a birth certificate too. So I was like, yes, it's an awesome time. And yes, he gave me the birth certificate. It was good. But again, it's how you engage. Let me say this, an important part of whenever you're dealing with government, the most important things that you can do when looking up statutes, you're looking up statutes that governs the government. And they're very helpful to understand what their limited power is. That's the value of understanding the law that governs the government. Law doesn't govern the people. Many times, or usually when the people are in government in some capacity, then the law would pertain to the people because the people have come into government on some level. The people without government are private. The people in government are public. And when you are interacting with government like they have in the licensings, there's aspects of that is public. And therefore the statute governs in some capacity. But be careful, because a lot of people will think that everything is public, or everything in the, things that are private. Sometimes people can't determine what is private and what is not private. All corporations are public without exception. Big or small, all corporations are public. That's why governments can control them so easily by way of taxation and regulation. Your business without government in it is private. And so your intimate relationship with your clients is always going to be and should be private. Right? Someone says, that's like when I went to jury duty, they wanted me to fill out tax info, left it blank. Yep. She threatened me with a talk with the judge. Nothing happened. Great word, not relevant with respect to jury duty. That's an area that we intend to work on, because it's one of those other areas that they ask, are you a U.S. citizen? And you want to stay out of that. I remember going into court, not yet qualified as a juror, and I was actually selected to sit on this petite jury, and I was not yet qualified as a juror. And the court asked, and the judge had said, is there any reason for you not to be on this jury? I said, well, I'm not yet qualified as a juror. That'd be that's the main reason. He says, well, do you want to be on the jury? I said, that's not relevant, whether I want to or not. Of course I did. And so he excused me, which he had no authority to excuse me, because there was nothing to excuse me. I had not yet qualified as a juror, so he can't excuse anybody. He can only excuse people who have qualified and are there on the jury. So I went back outside and I talked to the clerk and said, listen, I'm not coming back a second time for the same thing. They didn't answer the question, what's the definition of the term United States? So I went back, and I haven't yet qualified as jury on the forms that are on the internet. And that's kind of funny too. I'll digress a little bit. Used to be you'd get your jury questionnaire, would come in the mail, and you would just fill it out and as is and mail it back or whatever the deal is. Now they want you to go online. So, when my letter showed up saying go online, log in here, put in this code, and what have you, I didn't do that. Me, I make I have my father's humor. I make like I'm stupid while I'm trying to accomplish something. It's always a much better place to be. And let me tell you that It's just my personal tact. You know, you might have a real sweet disposition, and you can get accomplish what you're after. I admire that if you do that. Me, I think stupid is a good way, because sometimes these things are very stupid, and I think, as Mrs. Gump would say, stupid is as stupid does, and so I think that's a great way. So anyway, so I call up the court and I'm like, here's who I am. Like, so, and I kid you not, I say it the same way. I say, um, I got my jury questionnaire, yeah, and it said that I had to go on online. I'm not really sure what that is. It sounds like I need a computer. So, um, does the court have my mailing address to ship the computer to me, so that I can go online uh, to get to that questionnaire? And like, what? Yeah, you're assuming I have a computer and you're assuming I have internet service so that I can fill out your questionnaire online, you know? I was like, I just like have fun with the presumption. And like, well, you can go to the library. I'm like, do I really have to go to the library, huh? So, but no, I had a computer, but I was interested in some other information. So they directed me there. I'm like, okay, I can go online or go wherever I needed to go. But anyway, so we ended up engaging with them, asking them a question in writing. I told them that the State Department determines U.S. citizen by the 14th Amendment. So they came back in writing and said, we're going to determine U.S. citizenship by the 14th Amendment as well. And then I wrote back to them and said, thank you for that answer. Can you give me a citation that says New Hampshire is doing this by the 14th Amendment? And they said the 14th Amendment. That was their citation, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. And of course, that's a lie. How do I know that's a lie? Well, because there were jurors and juries in New Hampshire before the 14th Amendment. So obviously, there were juries formed before the 14th Amendment. So, but that was good to have in writing. Now I can't stand trial in New Hampshire, not being able to convene a jury of my peers. Excuse me. Um, so that's kind of a that was an interesting engagement. And again, I don't recommend that you talk to governments on the phone. The only reason you would talk to someone on the phone is to find out when they're going to answer you in writing about some particular thing. Okay, because you don't really want because to engage in something that you have no facts or evidence. They may be recording the call and they'll use it accordingly against you or whatever dealing with you. It protects them. But unless you tell them you're recording it, it really doesn't exist. And so therefore, it's not a good form of engagement because you have no proof. And the person that you're going to deal with on the phone usually doesn't know anything other than how to do the things that they do. And you're doing that, coming from a different place. And that's an important thing for you to, to learn, to understand how to deal with. Someone says, so you mentioned that we're not employable. If we do this, so only self-employed jobs. There's no such thing as self-employed. So I don't want my son drafted to war. So if he were to become a citizen of state, will he be unemployable? He can only be self-employed. What about him? Is it be able? I'm going to answer that question at the top of the hour when we get into talking about. I'll address that specifically at that time. So getting back to dealing with bureaucrats, thanks, Esther. I'll again, I won't forget you. I'll answer that question. The how you're going to manage and deal with the bureaucrats is an important part of thing for you to learn, and it is a skill that you can learn. And again, you don't want to feel overwhelmed. One of the tactics that I use is I'll usually get one part of government to deal with another part of government. For example, I've been giving documents to the DMV in the state for quite a while, and I didn't know of anybody else. I began to help some of our friends do that as well, and they would take the documents, scan them in, everything was fine. Then COVID happened, then they stopped taking documents, and so since I was here in New Hampshire, this was a client, and I was like, okay, so I go to the boss. I don't go to the DMV because that's not where you're going to get any results. So I went down to the offices and walked into the commissioners and found uh, the assistant, I think commissioner, the assistant commissioner, and he was out of the office. And it was really kind of a weird thing. They don't usually let people walk back in there, but the electric door that keeps people out, that you have to have a passcode. I was noticing the door was locked by passcode, and I was gonna ring the buzzer and say, here's who I am, can I come in, or whatever it is. And I thought to myself, I'll try the door first. So I tried the door, it was open. I walked all the way into the secretary's office, and there's other people sitting there, and somebody's talking about how short she is, and I mean, I'm bantering and coming in, and I'm loving her up. I'm just trying to be a very kind person. I said, "Is the assistant commissioner in? Can I make an appointment with him?" And he's like, "Well, he's out. He'll be back in such and such." I was like, "Okay, cool. Then I'll just come back a little later on." And she says, "How did you get in here?" I said, "Oh, the door was open." She says, "Oh, okay." All right. So I left, and we had that. And then I left my phone number, and then he came back. She called me and said, "Hey, he's back." And so it was a real great way to get in there. I got to sit down with the client and explain to him that the documents are required to be true, and there's term things and stuff that's on these documents that it's relative, um, and is different with respect to the forms that were filled out. And I told him at that time that there was probably, I had about 12 clients that were in the state, that they all had done this stuff the same way and were doing these same processes. And he asked me if I would give their names, and I think it was just their last names and their birth dates. I think I had that data, and I said glad to. And so all that information went to the Attorney General office, and the Attorney General told the DMV, you have to accept the documents because they need to be true under penalty of perjury. That kind of a formality. And so the state, they told me that they were going to send out a memo. They said, give us a little bit of time to draft the memo and get it out to all the DMVs in the state. And they did just that. After that, we go down and we're having no trouble. And it was interesting. Another client had gone down, and this was afterwards. And after we said the memos went out, she went in and was still having trouble in this one office. And so she calls me. I said, well, hang on, I'll call them. So I called the commissioner's office and said, listen, someone's having trouble down here in Manchester. Can you deal with that? They called and they got it done. I was like, now that's the way you're supposed to do. Now, I do this because I just like being in the thick of it. But you can do this in your own state. You can be relevant, and you can engage with the people that are there to serve you. And that's what it's about. And I have no problem meeting with the attorneys and talking with them about what we're doing and all that stuff. Now, what I didn't talk to the commissioner about was, I'm a state citizen and this is that, and I don't have to educate him. Don't try to educate these people. First of all, they're not paying you to educate them, and they're not enrolled in being educated. So keep your information to a need to know basis. Maybe someone who's a manager or a department head or somebody who's got a bigger picture, and you may then give them a bigger picture. But again, don't think that you have to educate all the people that are out here serving you. It's not necessary, and you shouldn't try, And we see this same thing in at the consulates in these different places. The people in government, when they're dealing with people, they're handling them. And listen, this is not their attitude, because I don't know all the people, and I'm not suggesting that they're being mean, but there is a certain level of, they deal with the people like they're cattle. Come on in, go. Okay, this way, come on in here. Yeah, do your thing. They're just handling lots of people that way. They're not trying to be mean or something. They're just doing their job. So when you understand that, don't feel so bad, because that's where they're coming from. Now, at the same time, this isn't life and death. This is just administrative paperwork. And so we don't want to have it be, we don't want to get offended, and then it takes us off of or out of our game. We don't want that. Okay. So it is available to have it be a peaceful thing. And And I did want to mention to Danny that I haven't forgotten you, and we just got back yesterday, and you're on my list to take care of, and I will move that forward so we can accomplish what we have to down there in Tejas, Texas. So I just want to let you know, thank you for your patience. Yeah, that's good. Um, so anyway, let me just open up any questions about dealing with bureaucracy. It's really it can be a fun game to play because again, like I said, we get one government to. I have contacted the congressman's office with a client to deal with and get answers from the State Department. And let me tell you something, it works. Okay, it does accomplish the task when you get a congressman's office stepping up to get answers for you or to get information for you, and have no problem dealing with that. And that's a great tool that you can rely upon. I wouldn't do it at first. You try to go down a certain path, and I don't know. I just you get good at finding out information, getting phone numbers, getting people on the phone. Sometimes is necessary. I'll get to Esther's question in a second as we approach the top of the hour. Have you ever been a party to a court case and had to deal with judges as a litigant? Um, yeah, I had sued someone before and dealt with that, but not in these matters. Um, we we do everything we can to stay out of court. Courts aren't always that friendly, and so um, I have some experience. We've written court things. For people that are dealing with courts in some matters. And the most difficult thing about those is the way that they write court rules. You see, in court rules, the court may do all kinds of things, or they may not. They don't have much obligation. There's no shall and wills with the court. But the litigants, they have a lot of shalls and things like that. So obligations are placed on the litigants and are never on the court. And because there are attorneys that are also, they're on the litigation side of the process, you're not usually going to get the attorneys to make sure that the courts are doing the right thing. Of course, that is what appeals are about. If at any time you feel the court has not done the right thing by you, then of course that's grounds many times for an appeal. And then at that point, the higher court is going to examine whether they did or didn't. And again, it's not a friendly environment. And that's where a lot of times in these matters, people will struggle because of court rules, not because their case doesn't have merit, okay, but because they expect it to happen a certain way. And judges, I'm going to say this, attorneys don't like to lose to pro se or se jure litigants, because that's like a mark against them. And and people don't like to lose face. So but sometimes in our debt discharge stuff, it'll move in that direction. And dealing with attorneys, I've dealt with attorneys, dealing with IRS, and dealing with third parties that are with IRS. I have no problem dealing with attorneys. Attorneys are great to work with. If you come in as knowledgeable, they they're pretty good. I've not really had to square off with them. I mean, one time I had an attorney who was signing as a notary to a particular process, and the attorney was being paid by one of the parties. And I told the attorney that I wanted to change some paperwork. He said he wasn't going to do it. And I said, well, I noticed that you're the notary for this document and you're paid by one of the parties. That in New Hampshire is a crime. And so, if we can't change this paperwork to make it true, then I'm just going to have to report this notarial act to the Secretary of State's office. He's like, well, just come on down and let's see what we can work out with the paperwork. I'm like, sweet. That's really awesome. Thanks for that. And the reason I did that was because I knew that he was in violation of the notarial law that was in New Hampshire. So that worked out good in that situation. See, it's great to know the law. And when I say that, I'm not talking about case law. I'm talking about the statutes that govern the government. And therefore, that's the best way to wield and say, here's your limitations, here's what you have to do. And we do that with the passport process and all that. So anyway, so that's some of that. But I did want to just talk a little bit about that, about the attitude associated with dealing with bureaucrats. I have a number of stories and things, and they're kind of fun looking back on it. But it doesn't have to be difficult, and you can accomplish what you're after. And if we work together, it'll be my commitment to you to help you to get really good at that, so that it's not, so you're not bothered, and then it just becomes boring, and we accomplish the task. That's the most important thing. So, any questions about bureaucracy or dealing with government entities? Brianna, with respect to dealing with court cases and dealing with judges, one of the ways that I would deal with judges would be to contact the the legislature that deals with the committee, the judicial committee. They are supposed to have oversight of the courts, and so now in New Hampshire, I have a couple of friends on the judiciary. Matter of fact, my state rep is a member of the judiciary. I'm going to deal with him on with respect to state citizenship. But I have a client that's dealing with the courts in a situation that's kind of funky, and then again about the court violating my duty to be on a jury. So that would be relevant to them. And again, I know them personally. I have their number in my cell phone. You should know the people who are saying they represent you. You should know, and you should meet these people so you realize they're just people, and then you can use that to your advantage. There's times when you want to find out legal information, or you want to deal with your government on some level. If I was dealing with the federal government on some level, I may utilize my congressman's office, and I've done that. When I was doing passport work with my family years ago, I did get the congressman's office involved, and the liaison, the woman that was handling that, she was phenomenal. She dealt with the State Department, and that's how the legal department, the State Department, got involved with our process. And if you do our passport process, you'll have that letter that the State Department wrote. They referenced that rep's liaison, the assistant in there, in the letter. She was awesome. She's since retired. But anyway, again, that's an important thing. And to use one government against another is important. If you don't know those people in your government that represent you, now I'm not saying they represent you well. I'm just saying they believe they represent you, and you don't have their contact information. You're not wielding the kind of power that you actually have. And I know in our circles of the anarchy and all that stuff is like there's no need for government. Yes, there's need for government. I'll tell you the easiest thing, there's a need for government. You want to know? People don't govern themselves, and they'll violate you as a gang if there isn't government that's at least established to secure rights. The only purpose of government, the only purpose of government is to secure rights. Period. End of story. Full stop. And so therefore you can expect or hold your government to only do that, and to assist you in accomplishing your pursuit of happiness when the government in some level is attempting or trying to violate you. So it's important. So anyway, let me just end it on that cheery note of that you are that you can accomplish great things. We're going to continue to take questions and stuff about state citizenship in this next hour. So, but here's something I want you to remember, and I talk about this in my class, and that's this. No one is obligated to fulfill any contract or agreement that's without their knowledge or against their will. Let me say it again. No one is obligated to fulfill any contract or agreement that's without their knowledge or against their will. That's something important to remember when you're dealing with government. Don't be in the place where you are giving up your power thinking that there are adhesion contracts that you're really not a party to. Okay. Don't give away your power thinking you have to undo things that you didn't do. Okay. That's an important principle. You never have to do that. And somebody had emailed me earlier about something that I think it was Anna von Reitz. That's a good word. That's what I think Anna von Wright was talking about. They were asking what the heck was that? It was in the email. I'll remember in a second. Shoot. It was saying that oh, I can't recall. It'll come up again. But a lot of times she's advising people as if there's a thing they have to undo. See, she begins the premise of people's life that they're enslaved or they're trapped or they're in something bad and therefore they have to get out of it. I don't share that sentiment. I believe that people are born free and therefore they need to remain free. And in the past, they may have had entanglements that they have done ignorantly, not knowing, or in some capacity, they have come into government in some level. Those things might have to be untied, but they're coming from a place that they are absolutely free and that they don't owe an obligation to anyone except to love people. And so if there are obligations being put on somebody, you have to be able to examine where did that power come from, who made up those rules. You are equal to all other men. And therefore, if other men in a collective are trying to oppress you or oppose you, you have a right to understand who that is, what it's about, and why you're in that circumstance or situation. And if it's self-inflicted, then you want to be able to make those changes and bring that clarity. Otherwise, there is no such obligation. So, let's. I thank you for this hour, and I appreciate you in this. And so I just want to transition into just doing some Q&A with respect to state versus federal citizen. Let me see some of these people. Let me see some people have. Let me see if I catch a couple questions. I won't miss anybody. Someone says, "Do non-taxable compensations from the VA disability pull me into the federal citizenship? Should I terminate this relationship as I am now starting the passport workshop?" Edward, yes. That's not the answer to your question. But I'm glad that you're on because I was trying to reach you and get some paperwork from you so that we can move stuff forward. But here's the thing. It doesn't say that that's your citizenship. But if you're receiving compensation from the District of Columbia, it can create a tax liability. It doesn't change your citizenship because if you're not a federal citizenship, you're going to be alien. And if you're not residing in Washington, D.C., then you're non-resident and alien. Okay. If you were to change the paperwork with respect to the obligation the federal government has with respect to you as a vet, a military person, then of course you can bring clarity to that. I'm pretty sure that when you signed up in the military, you probably signed up as if you were a federal citizen in some regard. You've had a tax liability because of your testimony, not because somebody else's testimony, but your own. That's what we're going to end up in untangling and such as that. And we have people that are vets and whatnot. And again, I want you to know that yes, it could and probably does create a tax liability if you'd paid taxes on that before. If there's sometimes certain disability benefits aren't taxable, that way the IRS doesn't pursue in that regard because the information that the federal government gets from the VA or from the Defense Department to IRS or whatever, they exchange information. So it's a known thing. Could they take your benefits? It's not likely. Could they? Maybe they could. It does create a liability, but sometimes people choose to just walk that line. If you're making other money, not as a federal citizen, you're not going to create a tax liability outside the federal zone. But just so you know, it would create a tax liability, but it's got nothing to do with your citizenship. That's another matter for yourself. Someone says, I'm a U.S. citizen living abroad since 2017. I do not have any plans to return to the States on a full-time basis. Does not being a resident in any state. Well, the truth is you probably are residing. You're not residing, but you still probably have habitation and domicile. If you have a driver's license, that's the state that you still have habitation and domicile. And so that's not going to go away. That's that place you intend to return to. So we can still work that out, but your state citizenship will be based upon that last place that you had driver's license and whatnot. It doesn't have anything to do with you residing in the states. That's not an issue. As long as you're not residing in the District of Columbia or Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, America, Samoa, then yes, you can still do the process and remain outside of that. You're going to have to make sure that if you're working for a company that you're contracting and you're not doing employment, because you're not going to have them do withholding, whether that's stateside or not. You want to get clear on that. We have classes and workshops to support you in understanding how to navigate those waters. So let me go back up to, so I don't miss this question from, I think it was Brianna. It says, she says, I'm currently emailing the Chief Justice of the Circuit Court regarding my right to record my own court proceedings. The Seventh Circuit has ruled that the right to record is a First Amendment right, but the courts will not allow it. That would be a great, if that's a state court, then I would contact your state rep or reach out and find out which state reps are in the Judiciary Committee, get them involved and let them enforce the law with respect to the court. Don't you deal with the court, let them deal with it. They are in the Judiciary Committee. They're the ones they answer to. So that's what I would do. Get one government to deal with the other, okay? If it's recognized as a First Amendment right, then let someone else enforce it, okay? They'll send notice and whatever, and that's an exciting thing. So get your state rep involved and say, the court's violating my right, my First Amendment right to record. What do you recommend? Who do you need to contact to make sure that the court's not violating my right? You are my rep. You volunteered. Help me out. That kind of thing. It'll be good to see how that works out. Says, I'm also demanding to have my right to a jury nullification. What state is that you're in? I've also been told that that will not be allowed. Yeah, Illinois. That's so funny, isn't it? Did you think communist countries are going to recognize jury nullification? Yeah. I suggest you stay and retire there because you're having so much fun. No, leave immediately or ratchet up your stand and go and kick ass and take names later. And again, contact, just don't do this alone. Don't do it from you. Become bigger than your situation and have your rep get involved with this situation. Have them compel, or they'll pass a bill requiring, in New Hampshire, they finally passed a bill requiring the courts to tell the juries that they had a right to jury nullification. But there's also ways to deal with that. But here's the thing too. If you're in a jury trial and you're not a 14th Amendment federal citizen, those other jury members may not be your peers. You may have to deal with that kind of a situation. I need to evoke jury nullification. You mentioned it in the court that you have a right to that. You may find your better remedy is in the appellate court that will overturn your court case based upon this violation. They may make up like as if you're jury tampering because you're telling the juror that they have this certain power or whatever. That's why the best way to educate jurors is not during a court case or even outside the courtroom is a terrible place for jury education. Those people don't want to be there. They're nervous. They're going in and you're out there trying to say things and the courts could determine that it's jury tampering. Not that it is, but they may feel that way. So it's better to find out in your state, where does the jury pool come from? That usually is the voter registration and also driver's license stuff. So if they tell you that's either one, then set up and set out to educate your jury pool so that they understand and get involved. There's an organization called FIJA, the Fully Informed Jury Association. I think it's fija.org. On their website, they have all those resources that you can order, and they have plans. And definitely, I would involve or get your jury pool cleaned up so they all understand what jury nullification is. Kevin says, I signed up, paid for the full passport process. Can I stop paying taxes today, or do I have to wait for the FOIA? No, listen. If you determine you don't have no tax liability, then, you can't fill out forms and be perjuring yourself. Have you taken the state citizenship class, Kevin, already? I know you signed up. We're preparing your stuff for you, or we're getting ready to here. Let me see here. That's good. Yeah, no, before you make that decision, I would take that class. Now you qualify for that class, I believe, in your if you're doing the full passport process. So reach out and you can just so you'll sign into that class and then just mark it as you've paid for it, because that came with your full passport process. Okay. And we'll make sure that then someone says, does one need to file income tax by 5/4/15 if they're planning to do passport change this year? How far are your private consul appointments? Oh, we can do an appointment anytime if you want to set up. Just what I would recommend is just you can go to the website, and if you want to do a consultation, or if you want to just reach out, just write to statecitizen@destinationfreedom.org and just request contact, and someone will reach out to you, and we'll set up a time to talk if that'll help. But no, we can do those consultations anytime that you like, but you can sign up for that on the website. Under counsel assistance, you can see it'll be a drop-down screen if you haven't done it already. And Brianna's the prison state. All right, that's cool. So I'm sorry you're having trouble with that former state of yours. I'm sure there'll be better days ahead. It's good that you moved out of there, and hopefully it isn't so bad there in Texas. Let's see. So any other questions on the state citizenship? Any questions, Q&A with this time here? You can ask about the process or about being a state citizen. There was some of those. There was the one of the questions about her son. Who was that? Let me see if I get that one. Oh yeah, here. It was Esther. Mentioned that questions like this. So you mentioned that we are not employable if we do this. So only self-employed jobs. Now, so when I said that there's no such thing as self-employed, usually when someone tells me they're self-employed, I ask them, I say, are you an employer? Meaning, do you have employees? And they'll say, no. I'll say, okay, are you an employee? And they say, no. So stop saying you're self-employed. There's no such thing as that. You work for yourself. That's all good. So, but again, she says, you don't want your son to be drafted. Now, if your son's a minor, then they don't do that. They would tend to do that for adults. That draft is for federal citizens. And so if your child is signing up for selective service, then they're going to presume that child is a federal citizen. And of course, then they can be drafted. So a lot of times clients will do a passport process for their child as well. But most of the time with this selective service, their threat is that you can't receive government loans, and you get welfare and some other, you're not allowed to collect the benefits if you don't sign up to go to and die in corporate wars these days. So but I understand that would be how you'd feel about your son. And listen, do not prepare your son for jobs with wages. Okay, that's bad. Okay, teach your son to help him create something, that a business of some sort, that makes money for him, or something online. Money should be created by things and not by you and your time. Don't sell your life by the hour. Create things that make money independent of your time. That's the way you become independently wealthy. And look, you don't have to have lots of money to be independently wealthy. It just means that all your needs are met and it doesn't come from your direct service like that. And look, there's nothing wrong. Let me put it like we say about the goose that lays the golden egg. When you're working for a company or a corporation, and the owners of the company may be having a good time traveling, they own the company. They may be doing really well. And so all the people working for them are geese, and every day they lay a golden egg that they get to enjoy. And of course, the company takes care of them on some level. No promises. They could let them go, whatever. So that's when you are the goose. Now, when you go work for yourself and you're still selling your time, then you own your own goose, you lay your own golden egg, and you get to spend it. Now, that's good compared to you being the goose. But the best is to own something that makes you money. Then that something is the goose. And there's not everybody's in that same space, but there are people that like to work or would work. They're your geese that you have to take care of. It with their labor, they lay an egg every day or every week or whatever, and that's how you create your wealth. That's a much better place. Like Jim Rohn would say, he would say, profits are better than wages. And so look up Jim Rohn, Rohn, and follow what he says. Is a master businessman. Show you how to create wealth independent of your time. It's wonderful. So don't have your son be employed. One is he can be let go, whatever. He's not in control of his life. Okay. Teach him a skill or something that he can give to people and benefit, have benefits. What about him being able to attend college? Well, I don't recommend going to college. The only college that I would recommend, honestly, is Hillsdale College in it's in Michigan. Maybe it's Hillsdale, Michigan, or maybe I thought it was like Lansing, Michigan, or something. But anyway, Hillsdale College is the only college that doesn't receive federal funds and stuff like that. And that's a liberal arts college. They're very conservative. Any other college, if you want him to learn certain skills specific to the kind of work he wants to do or she wants to do, then they can take that, they can learn those things anywhere. They don't have to go to college. Now, you're looking for them to have a degree, make sure that's what he's going to do. But again, even with a degree, knowledge isn't about just that he has a job or work. And certainly don't go into debt for an education. It's not worth it. Not these days. Don't start your children out in debt. That's vile. That's enslaving your children. Okay. So again, college is not something that if you want to ruin your kids, send them to college. If you want to ruin your kids, send them to government schools, But there's plenty to learn. Find a mentor. Let your son find a mentor in the field he wants to be in. Write to that person. Ask them for suggestions or directions, stuff like that, and to avoid having to waste years in college. Go learn the skills they want. If you need a certification, then go for a certification. Learn something, get certified. But degrees, unless you plan to be in these systems, degrees are, in my opinion, useless. That doesn't mean every degree is useless, but generally speaking, I'm generalizing. Name me a high-paying professional career that has a degree, and I'll show you a high end of corruption. Do you want your children to be in that? I don't recommend that. Other than that, I have no opinion. But yeah, so have him learn some skills. That way, he'll be always making money because he's always going to be serving people. Esther. So thanks for that. Brianna says the DS11 asks if you have previously applied for a U.S. passport. How do you answer that to ensure that the new passport is not linked to the previous one? Well, because we're correcting application errors. If you've had a passport before, you're going to turn in the old one. We're letting the State Department know that the previous application had errors concerning your proper citizenship and nationality, and therefore that's all written in there. That's all part of the documents that we do. So they'll issue a new passport with the new DS11. That's how this works. Oh, thanks. The greatest. Um, cool, cool. Sure. The passport application asks for the name of current or most recent spouse. Uh, can can one fill in Fifth Amendment as a response? You can leave it blank, but why do you want it? It's actually another opportunity for you to show that your spouse was born in one of the states and that you're marking that they're not a federal citizen. So we don't recommend, you don't need to, you can just leave it blank. You don't have to plead the fifth. Nothing on the passport application is required. All of it's voluntary, but we do recommend that you put that in because we don't want the State Department to write and say, can you provide more information? We try to give them as much as we can. And there are things that we don't include on the application, like the Social Security number. We have that in the explanatory statement. So, but yeah, so it's an opportunity for you to engage and to let your spouse go if you're not connected to your spouse, or you just don't want to include your spouse on there. But it's an important part about of the process, and about having accurate records with respect to yourself and your the future children or people who would look back at these processes. So we do include that, and unless you had some compelling reason, we probably would include it. But I'll leave that up to you in that situation. Um, all right. Any other questions about the state citizenship or the passport process? Um, really have appreciated engaging with a number of the people. If for any reason we haven't followed up or gotten back with you, just thank you for your patience, and we will follow up with everyone. I just returned from being away, and the office is has a lot of water damage, and so we're having to locate a new office. They have promised they're building in the building a new office space for us, and they're talking May before we can get into that space. So I don't know how that's going to work. So we may look for some other options in being a different location. So we're probably going to check into some of that stuff tomorrow, as we have time. So all right. Listen, we're looking to do this next Wednesday. We'll get into some topic at the beginning, and then we'll digress into some of these other questions for you. I appreciate everybody. Okay, someone says, did I say that one is advised to file X taxes next week if they're going to do the new passport? I can't advise you on whether you should or shouldn't do that. That's up to you. I would just say that if you understand, if you've taken our class and you understand who has a tax liability and who doesn't, if you don't know who has a tax liability, or you don't know if you have a tax liability or not, you should stay the course where you are. But if you know that you don't have an income tax liability because you know whether you're a federal citizen or not, then you can decide whether you, because listen, I'll tell you this way, do not perjure yourself on any government documents. Okay, because although those in Washington never go to jail for perjury or falsifying documents or classified, they can do whatever they want. That's not you. And so therefore I would always tell the truth. So if you feel that, if you know from the information that's in our class, or if you've not taken that class, I would highly recommend taking it so that you can know who has the liability. And if that isn't you, then take the appropriate action to either file or not to file. And then once we begin your process, we can correct those things. So that is up to you to determine, but I want you to determine upon that good information. If you know who has the obligation, you'll be able to determine whether that's you or not, okay? All right. Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful. Thank you. We'll see you next Wednesday. We don't usually do Thursday, but I was traveling. We'll see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Do I have marriage licenses? I don't have any marriage license. I mean, I'm married to my wife, but we have a certificate of holy matrimony. I don't recommend people licensing what they have right to, which is like it's a spiritual thing, marriage. So, no, I wouldn't recommend licensing marriage. I would recommend a monogamous relationship. I would recommend being married but not licensing. So um, hopefully that helps or blesses you. And I have married people before. Um, I am a Christian minister, and so it's something we have done before, and there's counseling that goes along with that. So, but that's those are important matters, and I hope you make good choice in that. I would not recommend to any of my kids to license their marriage. I would just tell them to get married and be committed. All right, all right, you guys are the best. We'll see you around, and God bless you. Take care. Let's see, and all right.